this is going to be a different type of video. I'm not actually going to show anything from F-099 because this is going to be a mental exercise. And I think my theory now is people are mentally losing races and they can't get over these invisible hurdles. So let's go into what this is all about. We're going to read into the Oblique Strategies. And for me to access this website, I had to use the Wayback Machine. So this is like lost knowledge here we're rediscovering. So what are these Oblique Strategies? It's just a deck of cards. And as previewing here, they are labeled by Brian Eno and Peter Schmidt, which is Brian Eno being the musician and Peter Schmidt being an artist. So they are the inventors of this. And now we can kind of just go more into what it is. The deck itself had its origins and discovery by Brian Eno. Both he and his friend Peter Schmidt, a British painter, who's graced a cover of Evening Star and whose watercolors decorated the LP cover of Eno's Before and After Silence. This also appeared in the full-size prints, a small number of original releases, intended to keep the set of basic working principles which guided them through the kind of moments of pressure, either working through heavy painting sessions or watching the clock tick while you're running up a big buck studio bill. Both Schmidt and Eno realized that the pressures of time tended to steer them away from ways of thinking they found most productive when the pressure was off. The strategies were then a way to remind themselves of habits of thinking, to jog the mind. It is not clear from any sources I've run across whether these cards are explicitly intended to be oracular at the outset, that is, whether or not Peter Schmidt and Eno necessarily saw them as exclusively as single instruction, single response kind of game. Introductory cards included in all three versions of the first versions of the Oblique Strategies suggest otherwise. It was clear also that the deck was not conceived of as a set of fixed instructions, but rather a group of ideas to be added or modified over time. Each of the three decks included 4 or 5 blanks cards intended to be filled out and used as needed. And now I also want to read one more segment because it was an interview and I find it interesting. So let's go into the Brian Eno interview. These cards evolved from separate working procedures. It was one of the many cases during our friendship that Peter Schmidt and I arrived at a working position almost exactly at the same time and almost in the exact same words. There were times we haven't seen each other for a few months at a time sometimes. And upon re-meeting or exchanging letters, we'd find we were in the same intellectual position, which is quite different from the one we have been prior to that. The Oblique Strategies evolved from me being in a number of working situations when the panic of the situation, particularly in the studios, tended to make me quickly forget that there was other ways of working and there were tangential ways of attacking problems that were in many senses more interesting than direct head-on approach. If you're in a panic, you tend to take the head-on approach because it seems to be the one that's going to yield the best results, of course. Now, often isn't the case. It's the most obvious and apparently reliable method. The function of the Oblique Strategies was initially to serve as a series of prompts which said, don't forget you could adopt this attitude, don't forget you can adopt that attitude. The first Oblique Strategy said, honor thy error as a hidden intention, and in fact Peter's first Oblique Strategy, done quite independently before us even had become conscious that we were doing that, was, I think it was it really a mistake? Which was, of course, much of the same kind of message. Well, I collected about 15 or 20 of these and I put them together onto cards. At the same time, Peter had been keeping a little book of messages to himself as regarding painting and kept those in a notebook. We were both very surprised that the other had been using a similar system, but also so many of the same messages being absolutely overlapping. You know, there was a complete correspondence between the messages, so subsequently we decided to try to work out a way of making these available to other people, which we did. We published them in a pack of cards, and now they're quite a lot of different people, I think. Now that we've gone over the website and also the interview with Brian Eno, it kind of get an idea of what we have here. It's essentially cards that, you know, have ways of getting out of roadblocks of your mind. And this is something I'm making a video about and related to 99 because this is something I've used kind of in my own mind. I don't have the physical writings, and I don't have the actual card game, unfortunately. But I run into this in my creative processes, and it just could be for something silly. You're just making something, and you run into a roadblock, and it could be for anything. It could be whatever you're designing, and you just cannot get past certain thoughts, or you're just like you're empty of thoughts, and this creates a new pathway, I think. And also, I've followed Brian Eno my whole life. He's one of my favorite musicians. I might have his entire catalog. Is one of those musicians where anything they put out, I'm like, I have to listen to this. And he's also connected to a lot of my other favorite music and musicians, like his work with Robert Fripp, and obviously with David Bowie's Berlin trilogy of Low, Heroes, and Lodger. So he's worked with the greatest musicians. Like, he was working with Phil Collins in Another Green World, and that's one of the best albums ever, and that's also included Robert Fripp. And then was attached to everything. Like, once you look up his name, you're just like, this guy is tied to all the greatest things that have happened in music in this time period. So it's worth looking into his thought process. Now, before we go into the cards for 99, let's go over the rules. Rule number 1, draw only when you hit a wall. The cards are not intended to read like a book or flip through casually for inspiration. They stay in their box until you reach a general roadblock, a creative dispute, or an unbearable moment of panic, boredom during a project. Rule number 2, absolute trust in the draw. When you draw a card, you must surrender to it. Even if the card says something that seems completely absurd or counterintuitive to your current goal, you're required to interpret and apply it directly to the problem at hand. Rule 3. Interpretation is intentional. Many prompts are deliberately cryptic or open-ended. Example, water or into the impossible. Part of the exercise is the mental leap your brain must make connect that abstract word or phrase into specific technique or creative predicament. Rule 4. Drawing multiple cards. If a drawn card doesn't offer immediate direction, Eno's unspoken rule is you can draw a second card, but only if you be tempted to make sense of the first. However, overdrawing dilutes the randomness and turns the exercise into a search for what you want to hear, defeating the purpose. And now let's tie this into F-Zero 99. So this isn't something I was even intending on making a video from. This is something I was doing by myself, and then I was thinking more about the gameplay of other players. And I watch everyone's streams at least a little bit. Like, there are a bunch of casual streamers, who aren't playing the game over 1,000 hours. And I watch their gameplay, and I think it's a decision-making issue, and which is mental. I think a lot of people have driving skills that it's like untapped potential. And there's always the courses I think about. It's like, Mute City and Deathwind 1. It's like, are the top players actually outracing you? So what's actually going on here? Why are they consistently placing a certain way in a race where, it's just, especially in Deathwind 1, which is just an oval. So they're, it's just all based on RTS. So they're essentially mentally winning the race. And so I want to focus more on that video, and maybe, because I was thinking about my other videos and showing all of the strategies for all the lobbies, and that's obviously helpful, but maybe the mental barrier just hasn't been broken yet, and that's what I want to do here. And now let's take a look at the cards. Going into the first one. Your power meter is a second currency, not a safety net. So this is implying that your energy is like money. You need to spend it to get the best outcome. So if you just hold your boost, and you're not going to come out on top at the end because you're sitting there with all your money while the other players have spent it and got ahead of you. Going into number 2. Dying in 5th is worse than finishing 20th. So this is like a 4th track problem. It's like, and I guess it depends on your placements. If you're near the top and you're really trying to get first place for the GP, I would say, just go for it. But there's also circumstantial things that maybe just surviving can make you win. There's it's not 100% chance that the person is, going to outplay you on the next track. So, sometimes just hold back and, it's not your race. And if you want to play the next race, you're going to have to, just accept that you're not going to get the placement you want. Number 3, embrace the red power bar. Low health breeds sharp focus. So this is the card that Edward pulls every race. There's really times where you should be in the red and boost to near death. And if you watch players like Natoa, you wouldn't believe the amount of risk he plays in the red. So if you want to play at that level, you're going to need to be in the red power bar. Number 4, 1 boost in reserve is worth 2 used in desperation. So this is something I thought about since Lunaire said it in the early days. So it was like the first week F-Zero was coming out, and he said, I can go faster than the other players without boosting. And it really speaks to his playstyle and efficiency of driving, and how people were just wasting energy, and you need to be using it in the correct situation. So people who are just burning boost, it seems like, I use my boost, I should be going faster than people. But in this game, you don't realize how much time you're losing by inefficient driving. Number 5, a full power meter at the finish line is wasted potential. So, yeah, this is pretty much obvious, and this is what you see people who are playing safe, is they just want to finish and don't do that last boost. But if you watch the top players play, every single race most likely is going to end with them spinning in like the last millisecond to safety because they've used all their energy. So if you want to play at the top level, you really need to use your power bar to depletion. Number 6, never boost into a blind cluster. So I have actually a recent story about this and something I've decided not to do again. So on Blue Canyon, actually I forget what lap it is now, 30 or 4th, there's a bumper pattern that's blind, and I boosted into it, and I just got into this decision dilemma. I was like, do I try to make the cut? Do I try to go around? And then you just drive straight into it, and it's just like, I cannot go around this corner and boost until I know the situation. So, and I think that's what people do and get people put into situations where they make mistakes. And that's where players, you see like Misa, who aren't they just don't put themselves into bad situations. So you need to know where this is going to happen. Is this, if I boost here, will I be able to assess the situation afterwards? Spaces like places like Red Canyon and stuff like that, where there's the cornering and chicanes. Just like, if you boost here, you might get put into the end of the boost where the situation where you can't avoid a red. Need to avoid those situations. Number 7, spend health to clear the swarm before the first tight chicane. So I like this idea of boosting where you don't normally boost, and you're gonna have to play the track differently now. So put yourself into a different position to start the race. You're not you're not used to it. Your usual routine is not giving you the best results. So it's time to just do something different. Use a boost where you haven't before and see where that leads you. Going into number 8. So now we're in a new category here, trajectory and positioning. Cornering angle matters more than raw entry speed. And so I have a good example here. In Whiteland 1, you just take the jump cut, and now you're faced with some bumpers leading you around the ice turn. So what do? Do you go around the bumpers, or can you take the inside barrier cut? And sometimes to take the inside barrier cut, you actually need to wait a little bit. So a lot of times what you can do is just kind of do a little wide turn here to create some time and space. And then if you take that cut properly, which is you know, it's no gimme. You still have to cut through the barrier and, you know, between a bumper and the wall, but it is faster and more efficient. Number 9, use the pack's draft to save energy, not just gain speed. So this is just playing in the pack, and you need to know when to do it and when not to get chipped down. So part of the pack play is actually knowing kind of where to be in the pack. So if you're just getting chipped down to death, like, the pack isn't really serving you in the way you want it to. Number 10, enter turns early to force rivals into the outer wall. So this is actually really annoying when people do it, but this is the tip. You know what? You just force people out of the lines that they want, and you know, especially if you're a goose, you can goose people out of their lines. Number 11, commit to your line early so rivals are forced to react to you. So this is kind of the same concept, and it's just basically line bowling. So you go into your line and really make it difficult for their play, and a lot of times you can push people out of their line in a way where it ruins their race. So this is actually something where I watch my mini map and I get kind of excited from it. So like, you see their dot on the map, and then you cut them off in the line in a tough situation. Then you can see their dot go away, and you're just like, yeah, I won that line. You know, it's really satisfying when you can win kind of the little small battles like that. Number 12, sky positioning is earned in the mid pack, not the front. So this is kind of this does change a bit. You know, obviously, what we usually say, it's like upper middle, and you know, the back end of the front, and this does change depending on the courses and who's playing. And a lot of times, though, I would say here is don't be the absolute densest part of the pack, because chip damage is there, and you could get some, you could get lucky in a bunch of sparks there, but there is like a Goldilocks zone a lot of times where you can be getting a ton of sparks and not chip down. It's just, it can be hard to find that positioning. So this is combat and contact now. A defensive spin attack in the empty air is better than getting clipped. So we found that out with Master A1's video. It's something we've kind of always talked about netcode, nothing is real. And you just show like a side-by-side comparison if two people are, post their video, that you could literally just spin attack empty air and you end up destroying the other person because, nothing is real. Treat rivalry machines as collisions as unpredictable boosts. So I would call this the float. It's like you can use the pack to gain speed, and it's better than a boost, really. The float it's unreal how useful the float is. Especially when you get it early, and like your Stingray, if it could be make or break. Like, you could be trapped in like 80th place on Mute City, or you could float all the way up to like the perfect position and get a Skyway. So it's that useful. Otherwise, if you're Stingray and you start the race with 3 boosts, it's just like, well, this is going to be a challenging one to get out of. Force KO extends your power bar. Calculate the risk early. Now I would use this card as kind of just like play in the farming mode and take risks. Like, you don't have to sit there farming every gray you see, but like actually take risks you weren't taking before, and maybe you'll find out you're getting outcomes you didn't think you'd get with going for grays. 16, pit and wicker machines against the barrier during heavy turns. We kind of covered that one early in positioning. I don't really want to give advice to Goose players, but really, you should just be bullying people all the time, unnecessarily too. Just bully them every aspect of the race. You never know what could be happening on their screen. You could just be a little movement might just pin them against the wall. You won't really know, but until they type into the chat that you destroyed them. Going into 17. Bait an opponent's spin attack before committing to your pass. So this one's actually a fun one. Especially when you're in the power down state, it's just like, am I gonna play this just straight up? Like, I'm gonna boost into you, and like once they hear you're getting close or see your arrow, they're gonna spin, and or do you want to do it? You want to bait them. You want to get as close as possible, save your spin, and then once their spin ends, you go in for the attack. So it's a fun little meta game with that. In 18, your machine's weight is a weapon. Use it in near chicanes. I would say, like, you don't even have to be driving in the perfect straight lines. You should actually be trying to mess people up if they're not goose, trying to mess them up, and hit them in a way that could screw up the race, because you never know. Like, you may not see it on your end, but perhaps your hit is enough to turn lock them or whatever, where it just ends their race. Number 19. Now we're into a new category, mental resilience and tilt. Honor the wall crash. It forces speed reset you needed. And so I think this is something that people need to keep in mind. You can play out of situations, especially if it's not a dead lobby, like that time if you crash, you're kind of just screwed. But in these lobbies where you could get sparks, you can, this is where we kind of say in Misa's, when he's streaming, it's like plot armor. It's like he crashed, and all of a sudden all this good stuff starts happening to him. It's like there is a luck element to it, but like you can work your way out of crashes and to like get rewarded for it. And that's, it's an aspect of the game that, sometimes you're put into this situation, then you're just like, all of a sudden now you have opportunities to get player KOs, and, smoking grays are there, and then, you get a skyway and you get back all the way to first place, and you're just like, I played bad and I still won. So, and it was, now it's beneficial because then you carry your extra energy into the next race. So, that's something you should really be thinking about. Going into number 20. Save 15th beats an aggressive rank every time. So, this is just one of your goals, and to avoid, I guess, personal tilt, it's like maybe if you stay in the race, you'll be happy or not. Sometimes I'm kind of defeatist in that way, where I say I'd rather be dead than playing. So, maybe I need the card. The machine's greatest weakness is your own panic. This is just kind of going back into the other one about the wall crashes. It's just like, can you work your way out of this without playing like, frantic and wasting energy and all this stuff? So panic racing is often bad, and this is something a lot of times I've viewed with Oliver's videos. It's just, you see bad things happen to him, and he's playing Stingray, and it's like he goes into the wall, loses his speed, and like, oh, surely he's going to boost now, but he doesn't. And then he works his way out of it. Like, he gets these back bumps, and he gets back into the race, and, really is able to play out of it. Going into 22. Treat a bad lap 1 as a step for a legendary comeback. And this is something I made a video about recently on Mute City. I refer to it as like, surviving a bad netcode lobby, and I couldn't get out of this problem. And, this could be applied to any race, but in Mute City 1, and like the other Mute Cities, I just could not get a first lap Skyway to the Falcon. And I kept not being able to get out of it. Then I finally figured out a Skyway pattern to get out of it in pacing. So I should still learn the gold setups. I don't know that. But then, you figure these RTS strategies to get out of situations that you didn't know about before, and you realize it is possible to get out of a bad lap 1. Number 23, stop looking at your rank counter, look at your energy bar. So this is really good for pacing. It's just like, especially in the tough lobbies, you never know there's people who are boosting into the 3rd and 4th lap, like using their last ounce of energy, and maybe you're just sitting there, with a ton of more energy, and like you really don't even have to worry about them at that point. So you're controlling the race, even though you're not in the lead. You could but your energy is controlling the race. Going into 24, accept that red bumpers exist to disrupt perfection. So sometimes you will not just be able to take the lines that you want. And I have to found the one that bothers me a lot is Mirport Town 1. The end section there varies a lot because, sometimes there's this insane red cluster that it seems like there's no way out, and I take this very long pathing, and it's just like you lose a ton of placements, but the inside cut is like super dangerous. So there's situations like that, and we're all dealing with Sandtown reds at the end now, which is a difficult pass, and that does change if you get the bad red clusters. Sometimes maybe just accept that they're there and slow down. Going into 25, do not chase the leader if your machine cannot sustain the pace. So this will burn you out, especially if you're playing like in Sand Ocean and you're chasing a ray. You shouldn't be overboosting unless if you have a vendetta against them, and they might get the best of you, probably will. So there's times where you just need to accept the leader is on a breakaway, and it'd be better for you if you didn't burn your energy chasing them. Going into 26, mistakes are data, analyze the line, not the loss. So this is really important, and I like to think about it as you look at Dragon Ball Z and Goku, he always starts off losing, and then he learns from that, and that's the resilience of a Saiyan. So try to keep that in mind, that you need to make these mistakes, and that's a lot of what 99's about. It's about experience, and people who have more experience, they have all these data points in their head of these small factors, and that's an advantage. Going into 27, trust your muscle memory over your visual panic. And this is kind of just don't playing by sight can cause problems, and you need to understand where everything is by repetition. And this is something that occurred to me is when I was playing the new courses, and this has happened every time, and I always wondered this new mirror mode come out or secret, and this I'm bad. I just can't. I feel like I can't get the outcomes I want. I'm just am I a bad player now? But for some reason, it just takes me a little bit to get acclimated to the new courses and strategies, and then I can succeed. But until I get that kind of data into my head, I don't have this muscle memory built up from these tracks, and my playing by sight just fails me. This track stays the same, only anxiety changes it. Maybe this is just a good card for people who have an issue with recovering from bad stuff happening and getting put into situations. I guess one of the interesting things about what people say is, they're having all this stress stuff, and from these races where I'm really unaffected by it. I don't feel the intensity really of changing my heart rate or anything. I only really experienced that in GX, and I haven't been able to change that anxiety issue with a lap 3 and a personal best on GX, where my heart is racing, my hands are sweating, and trying to execute when you're in that mental state is very difficult. So maybe people are experienced that in 99, and they need to break through that, which is kind of just you need to go through the motions, so you can't play the same. Going into the next one, 29. Disregard the rival who knocked you. Focus on the next apex. So basically for me, if they're a goose, I know there's really nothing I can do to get revenge back on them. Maybe potentially a back bump, and I have risked some stupid bumps like that, And on silence is a good place to actually do it to people. If you you can boost through the mines and into the jump pad, and in a lot of times you can really screw people over there, and it's even worse on actually silence too. So you can get revenge in that way, but like how much should you be going out of your way to do it? Like we joke around about the blues, and I'm gonna get revenge on them, and like I'm making a list, but I'm actually not. Like I forget about it. There are some situations and stuff that have gotten to me a little more. Like I was having a once in a lifetime event on the festival, and 5 blues spawned on top of me and mirrored a big blue one, and they just specifically targeted me too. Like they just swarmed me, and it was just like, man, like you just ruined something I'll never be able to obtain again, probably. Everything was going perfect that event. So will I get revenge on that person? Yes. So I am going to disregard this card. Now going into 30. Now we've entered a new category, abstract and wild cards. Convert intent into habit, and convert habit into instinct. So it's kind of just the evolution of play. Number 31, reverse your primary instinct for the next 3 turns. And this is kind of like what I was hitting on in the beginning of talking about this. I'm just like, maybe your instinct is wrong and you need course correction. Maybe take some risks that you wouldn't do, or vice versa. But if you're not getting the overall outcomes you make, there's something that needs to be changed. 32. Treat the track as a rhythm game, not a racing game. This is really something that's been noted. A lot of times I say it's not even a racing game, and I'd say there's a percentage obviously is a racing game, but for the most part, yeah, it really is an RTS rhythm type game, and that's why I say when I have a bad race, I'm out of sync, is because you can't do anything once you're out of sync, and if you can't recover for that, you get your something like a 5th lap skyway. Your rhythm was off pattern. Now going into 33, remove the obvious option. Maybe there's just times you just need some reverse thinking, and your obvious option, if it's not getting you top placements, then your obvious option is actually wrong. So, this kind of goes into the other stuff with the primal instincts, and you need to maybe rewire your brain here. Number 34, look closely at the most embarrassing mistake and amplify its lesson. A lot of times there's lessons to make, and if it's not just some random teleportation glorp or a blue, there are a lot of mistakes you need to make in order to play better. Number 35, give space to the chaos. And this is sometimes I do break and stuff. You need to know when to not go into certain situations. I mean, you could YOLO it. It's pretty cool when you do, and you could get away with it. But there's certain situations I don't put myself into. And it's funny when people do. Like how many times there's been finales where someone's the leader, then they go try for the perfect 4th lap cut into the last turn where there's absolute chaos and they die, and it's like you didn't have to do that at all. Like you were ahead by enough where you would have won no matter what, but they chose to go into the chaos. And now let's go into the last set of cards. So these were the blank cards where they come at the end. So maybe you run to a situation you're like, I need to make this card of mine, I can't get out of this situation that keeps happening to me. And so maybe just making note of that could be helpful. You should be watching your runs too, and that's what it comes from. Even watching my runs, it's actually you just can't believe some of the stuff you're doing. You're just like, I would have made this, done this better, and I would have been here. And it's just it doesn't work that way when you're playing the game. And here I like just the general statement of reset your focus. As we are humans, and there could be an infinite amount of factors to this. Like for me, even I have a hard time transitioning from GX to 99. I think it makes me play worse. My timing gets off. And I'll start like hitting reds more often. Just like my timing's busted. And I just can't play this today. So maybe I just need to do more warm up or something. Or there's all the other factors. Mental, physical. So maybe you just need to step away, or maybe also too just you need some warm-up races and practice some of the harder turns to see if you're calibrated right today. And as far as going into like mental states and physical, that they could be one and the same. And there was this movie called The Hustler, and it has one of my favorite scenes of all time. So it was about playing pool and hustling, and there was this character Eddie Felson playing against Minnesota Fats. So these were the two best of the best, and in the scene, Eddie Felson's like sweating. He's just like, they're playing a marathon. He's just like physically getting worn out, and you can see it's affecting him mentally. And then Minnesota Fats walks out of the washroom looking like, he's just completely refreshed, and he's just about to start the day. And where Eddie Felson's just looks like, he's at the end of his rope. And that really, just like when you see that, it's just like, Eddie's done for. Minnesota Fats is gonna just destroy him after this point, and that's a lot of the mental aspects of high level any sport. So, you can mentally defeat your opponents, and someone like Mike Tyson used to talk about all the time with the intimidation and all that stuff. He's just like, I beat my opponents before the match even starts. And I think some people submit to this and they accept that they're not gonna win the race, and then they don't. So I think there's a lot of mental barriers people need to get over there, and that's why I made this video. And who knows what you need to get over. I'm just making a list here of about various stuff in the game. So hope it helped.